this month's FireBytes session, Dimension 101, start leveraging log data in 10 minutes or less. When we actually started out trying to come up with the title of this, I said to Wendy, I can actually do it. I've tested it in under 5 minutes that we can start logging that data for you, but I felt in a live environment and with everyone watching me, I felt a little bit safer going to 10 minutes. So as we look at the agenda for today, we're actually going to cover a few items. Again, as hopefully this isn't your first FireBytes session, but if it is, welcome. Just a little bit about myself as a presenter. I'd like to kind of stick to the agenda by slide and then mix and match with a live environment. So today we're going to talk about how much does WatchGuard Dimension cost you. And actually I'll just go ahead and answer that question right now because it's absolutely free. You can actually use it with some of the E-series, some of the legacy devices, as long as it's 11.0 or later. You can go ahead and leverage that data through WatchGuard Dimension. We're going to cover where do I download Dimension, what environment will Dimension work in, and then we're going to walk through the Dimension wizard and ultimately set up email notifications and start scheduling those reports so that you can get that vital information out of your network within a matter of minutes, and you can have those reports in your inbox every day. So as we look at how to get started with WatchGuard Dimension, again, you can download Dimension from software.watchguard.com. We'll go ahead and demonstrate that in a little bit here. The release notes are going to have all of the installation and upgrade information. Now, as I mentioned, installation and upgrade, obviously there's two different paths. If you already have an existing Dimension database, you don't want to reinstall it, otherwise you'll lose your data. So that's where the upgrade information would come in handy. As you look at Dimension, it is an appliance. It's deployed as an appliance within an Hyper-V or VMware environment. Today I'll be demonstrating an ESX environment. And as you can see with the screenshot below, this is actually the Dimension interface. Hopefully this isn't new news to you as a WatchGuard customer and user. As we look at this, for instance, we're seeing top 0-day malware. APT blocker is kicking into high gear here with celebrity picks, free games. I would imagine with tax day right around the corner, we're probably also going to see quite a bit of influx of your refund is available, all these types of phishing attacks. So just be aware of those as we head into tax season. So as we look at the directions or how to install the Dimension virtual machine, these are the steps that we're going to be going through. So we're going to deploy the WatchGuard Dimension virtual machine. We're going to connect to our ESX host. I've also used Dimension within VM Workstation. So we're going to go File, Deploy, OVF template. We're going to browse to the OVA file. We're going to accept the EULA, the end user license agreement, and we're going to provision the disk. And then the important part is how to get your IP address so you know how to configure the Dimension wizard. And it differs a little bit if you're in Hyper-V, and I'll cover how to get that in both environments for you. So with that, let's go ahead and switch into a live environment. As I mentioned, you can actually get your software by going, my apologies, my wife always says I move too fast, so I need to kind of slow down a little bit on this. But as we look at software.watchguard.com, that's the address that we want to go to download the software. From here we have, and if you haven't checked this out, we have completely redone the software download section. If you recall, you used to have to log into the website, navigate through the website. Now we've completely taken that outside of that logged in environment, and now it's freely available for you to download. The nice thing is we have the quick links here, so you can click on, for instance, Dimension 1.3 Update 1. We also have the WatchGuard System Manager here. But today we're going to be covering Dimension 1.3 Update 1. So we can just click on that link, that takes us right into the details page for Dimension. As I mentioned, we have the release notes. Now, the release notes also cover, for instance, before you begin, it covers your environment. And an important part here is that it states to see any related data pertaining to subscription services, so web blocker, spam blocker, gateway antivirus, intrusion prevention, signatures or IPS, RED, application control, DLP, and APT blocker. You must have a valid subscription in there. So your mileage may vary if you're maybe don't have APT blocker today, although you can go in and simply request a trial subscription of that. And again, it will accept any log messages for FireWare XDM11 or higher. So as we look at this, it also has the system requirements. We have Dimension on VMware, Hyper-V, and it is running on a Postgres database. So the SQL database running in the background. The browser compatibility lists are there. And then we have, for instance, the installation, or actually the upgrade, and then the installation instructions, which we're going to cover in this session. So again, looking at this, since we are going to focus today on a VMware appliance, we're going to go ahead and start downloading this OVF template for new installations. It's going to go ahead and start downloading, but I'm going to go ahead and minimize that. I actually have it downloaded already. So as we look at, again, this is my ESX environment. I'm connecting through my vSphere. For those of you that are familiar with this environment, I'm actually running XDMV firewalls, and they're in a full clustered environment. Very cool things that maybe we'll cover in a future session if you'd like to see that. So we go into File, Deploy OVF Template. Now we can simply choose the file that we have. Even though it's an OVA file, we still use the OVF template. They're synonymous. So we're going to choose that OVA file here, and we're going to go ahead and click Next. Now once that actually loads up in our system, it's going to simply give us details, the vendor, of course, WatchGuard Technologies, as well as the size on the disk for them. Here's the EULA. We go ahead and accept that. Click Next. You know, by the way, the 5 minutes did not include reading every word of the EULA. But now we're going to go ahead and name it as a Dimension server. Now with the WatchGuard, the appliances, whether it's XDMV or the Dimension appliances, we do want to configure these as a thick provision, lazy zeroed, as indicated here. And it's going to allow it to be more flexible. We also have if you have virtual switches in your environment, we can select which switch that we want that to be on. In this case, I'm going to go ahead and say, let's go ahead and power on after deployment. Click on Finish, and now it's creating that VMware, deploying that appliance. Within a matter of minutes, we're going to be ready to go. So the next step from here is going to be to get the IP address of Dimension. Now with VMware, it's actually quite a bit easier because we can see that right on the appliance screen that I'll show you in a few seconds here. So as we look at this appliance that we just deployed, we're going to see the IP address come in. Right there we go. That's the IP address that we're going to want to connect to from a browser to start the setup wizard. Now, if it is running on Hyper-V, this is where it differs slightly. We're not going to be able to see the IP address there. Instead, we're going to have to go into the console. So let's go ahead and click on Open Console. It would be fairly similar in a Hyper-V environment. And we're going to log in as WG support. Again, all of this is in the WatchGuard documentation, the README file. And the first one is going to be read-write. That's going to be the default password. and then it's going to ask us to change the password on the first login. So I'm going to go ahead and repeat the default read-write password, and then I'm going to choose a new password. Again, this is only necessary if you're running in a Hyper-V environment to find out the IP address. I'm going to simply use the command ifconfig, and it's going to show me the IP address that we have here. So not surprising, we see 1.52, just like we saw on the summary screen of that virtual appliance right here. So let me go ahead and move these out of the way. We're officially done with deploying that. It was that easy. So now the next step is really to get in to the website and start configuring the dimension wizard. So I'm going to go ahead and type in the IP address. Of course, my certificate isn't trusted yet. We can go ahead and trust that certificate if need be. I'm going to go ahead and log in with the default of admin and read-write as a password. So again, as we look at the dimension setup wizard, a few of the steps are going to include setting a host name for dimension, talking about setting the IP address for that interface, and then the administrator passphrase and the log encryption key. Now, the important thing to mention as well is if you wanted to tie into Active Directory user authentication, you can absolutely do that. The log encryption key, we'll go through that process, but essentially, if you have a remote, let's say you have Dimension sitting in the cloud, your log files are all being encrypted, so you don't need to worry about plain text log files going across the wire. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead and say, be real original and call the host name Dimension. I'm going to go ahead and set up a static IP address on this. And just for the today's scenario, I'm going to choose the existing DHCP address. Obviously, that would change for your organization. I'm going to choose the default gateway on this. So that's going to be my, again, in this case, I'm running on behind a WatchGuard T10, so I'm going to put in the IP address of that. I'm going to put in DNS servers. Today I'm going to use Google. I wouldn't necessarily advise that in every environment. You would probably host or have some sort of internal DNS server that you would use. I'm going to choose a domain name on there. Click Next. Change my administrator passphrases. And then I'm going to set the encryption key. And again, here we see that it's to establish a secure connection between your log server and the XDM devices. Review, it's setting up a progress page. So now at this point, the next step is to talk about setting up the WatchGuard environment to be able to log to the Dimension server. Now in this case, we do have the Dimension server behind the XDM, which makes it slightly different than if you had your XDM or your Dimension instance within the cloud. So looking at this, we can simply go into Setup, and now we would say send log servers to these servers, or to these log servers, log messages to the servers. Now with 11.10 right around the corner, we do have the option to send to multiple servers at the same time. So if that's if you've been asking me for that feature, good news, it's right around the corner. So now I'm going to go ahead and type in the IP address of my Dimension server, and then go ahead and, again, match that key that I set up through the wizard. Click OK. We've got this going. Click OK. Now, as we're looking at this, the important thing to note is that if you're running solely packet filters, or you're not running the full UTM subscriptions on there, meaning you're not running antivirus or IPS or app control, your mileage is going to vary what you see in the Dimension dashboards. So the important thing is if you can switch into a proxy, and if we look at that proxy, we have the application control enabled, although we are not in this instance, we are not denying anything. So again, we could go ahead and drop that peer-to-peer traffic if need be, or if you've been following along our FireBytes sessions, we can actually go ahead and say YouTube isn't allowed to take 100% of our bandwidth, and we're going to limit that rather than just allowing and blocking that, which I cover in a previous session of FireBytes. Again, looking at the proxy, if you haven't looked at WatchGuard proxies in a little bit, we are now releasing 2 versions of, for instance, the HTTP client. We have the standard, and then we have the HTTP client, the non-standard one. So looking at the standard, we do have a lot of the features set that I would have recommended you configuring for the normal proxy. So again, with 11.9, we offer 2 flavors of the proxy template that you can go in and start configuring. But the important thing to note is that we need to set in enable for logging here within the proxy. So now as we look at this, we also have IPS enabled for that. Again, the intrusion prevention to block against maybe it's denial of service attacks or other things within there. Now, as we mentioned with APT blocker, we do want to go ahead and enable APT blocker so that those malware, crypto locker, crypto, you name it, as they morph, they're going to be blocked from your network. And we just posted a webinar on APT blocker as well on our YouTube channel. So if you are interested in that, you go ahead and check that out. Same thing for HTTPS. We are doing logging that traffic. However, in this case, I'm not doing deep packet inspection. I do cover that in another video, how to enable and do that SSL decryption. Again, with WatchGuard, there's no additional fees to do the SSL encryption. You can simply check this box and make sure you watch my other videos on how to set up your certificates to be able to trust that. But in this case, we do want to enable logging for reports. We're good with that. And then I'm going to go ahead and also my default outgoing policy, I'm going to say, let's go ahead and make sure that all packets are being logged, send log message to Dimension. Now, as we talk about this, I'm just going to save this real quick. As we talk about this, a lot of people are just running, for instance, default policies that I see out there, and they're not running the packet filters. So what we can, or excuse me, they're not running the proxies. So as we look at this, WatchGuard's simply going to process traffic in a top-down approach. So whether or not you have auto order mode turned on, enabled, or disabled, essentially as traffic comes through, so it's going to hit HTTP proxy first, it's going to hit the HTTPS, and then all other traffic is going to go out the default outgoing policy. And again, maybe that's a great way to, look at what's going on in your network and then look at the policies that you need to be able to secure in your environment. So I'm going to go ahead and click OK, click Finish, and now I'm just going to go ahead and log into that, into my Dimension database. Sorry about that, too many passwords going around in my mind here. So now, good news, we've already, we see that my P10, also named as Terminator, you can't go wrong with a name like Terminator. It's connected to Dimension. We see the IP address. We see it's connected. So that's great news, right? Within a matter of minutes, we see that we are starting to receive that log messages in there. Now, real quick, I wanted to go over some other areas that you would probably be interested in. A lot of times I'm talking to people that don't have any sort of logging, they don't have the log or reporting server set up. They say, gosh, in WatchGuard, they have all these alerts here. Let me just show you. We go into properties, we go into logging. They say, I've got this send notification, send email, but I never receive an email about anything that those notifications that I want. So part of that is that those emails are going to be generated from your log server. So you need, in this case, we're using Dimension as opposed to legacy report and logging server. So we're going to go ahead and set up that under administration. We're going to go into log server management. So again, we're just setting up the configuration for our Exchange server or our email server to be able to send those notifications out. I'm going to go ahead and click on notifications. I'm going to switch to read-write mode here. And then I'm just going to say, let's just say it's mail.watchguard.com. If I needed the credentials, I could start that up here. And then we would say send email to and have your email address in there, or maybe a distribution list, what have you. You can set it in here. We're going to go ahead and click save. Then if we needed to, we could save log comments as well. We could also go into IP address mapping. So if we wanted to, maybe for some of the smaller environments, we could go ahead and simply add in well-known IP addresses. So for instance, if we had 1.1, we would name that as Terminator to point to our WatchGuard as a WatchGuard alias for our firewall. If we needed to, we could also add in, for instance, printers. We could also do dynamic IP address resolution to reverse lookup on DNS servers. So you can configure that as well. So now going into, let's look at what Terminator's been sending us. And we come in here and we can see, for instance, this is the executive dashboard. And we'll cover more in future series. But as we look at this, we see, for instance, Billy has authenticated to our internal database. If we were running, for instance, maybe a single sign-on services that's running event log monitor on a domain controller, we would seamlessly be able to see, for instance, Billy's login on here as well. As we look at that, we can also see, as I mentioned, some of the key points with Dimension is being able to, within a matter of minutes, find out who the top talkers are on the network, what they're currently doing, maybe find out top domains. But again, as we just started logging this data, we're going to see about a 5-minute delta between real time and what we see within Dimension. And I've walked into network operations centers where they actually have this dashboard on the screen just running, and it's going to auto-update for you when it pulls that information about every 5 minutes. So as we look at those email reports, I want to go ahead and share with you what's going to be emailed to you. It's going to be this executive summary report, which you can actually configure. You can add your logo here. You can add a little tagline. And I would advise you, had I had the power of Dimension in my previous, as a WatchGuard customer, I would have added a tagline prepared by Johan Blumhardt and sent it to my boss every night at midnight, and he would have thought, wow, Johan's a great worker generating this report for me every night at midnight. But again, it's going to be a great barometer of what's happening in your network. It's not going to give you the full details that Dimension will, but as you look at here, for instance, top clients, you look at this and you start thinking, oh, well, and maybe if you had 5 different users and you saw a large disparity of network or bytes transferred, then maybe that would be cause for alarm, and you would go into Dimension and start digging around. For instance, we see here top URL categories. We also see top application. So, wow, right out the gate, I see I have some BitTorrent series going on. As you talk about some of your environments, maybe you have copyright infringement. Maybe you're going to get a letter from your ISP, and you need to start looking at how to block BitTorrents in your network. So, again, perfect way to find out what's happening in your network and ultimately start configuring the policies for that. So looking at this, I see now I did a manual refresh, and now I can see, for instance, Billy. He looks like he's one of our top talkers, and gosh, your boss or the CEO comes in and says, I'm trying to view this latest cat video online, but the network seems slow. Who's our top talker on the network? Well, they're probably not going to say top talker, but they'll probably say where's all the bandwidth going, something along those lines. And within a matter of minutes, we can click on Billy and see, gosh, he looks like, if this was March, we would probably say, gosh, it's March Madness, but he's definitely looking up ESPN, sports. And again, right from here, we can say, you know what, we don't necessarily want sports in our URL categories being allowed in our environment. Maybe it's counterproductive. Billy's getting off task. Let's go ahead and start changing our policy or start creating policy so that Billy's not able to get to those websites. So again, right out of the gate, we have some phenomenal tools. And within a matter of, I want to say 5 minutes, had I not talked so much and had I not had to slow down, I could have had this data, this insight into my network within a matter of a few minutes going on here. And then the other thing I wanted to cover today is setting up those reports to be emailed out. So now that we've set up our email server, we can simply come under administration, go into schedule reports, go ahead and switch that to read-write mode. And now let's go ahead and create a report schedule. So I'm just going to say sample report. Now I'm going to resource selection. I'm going to say all devices. I could actually specify those devices if need be as well if I had more than one firewall in my environment. And I'm going to send those reports via email. I could also say specify directory, or if you're a provider, I could also do send reports to ConnectWise. So I'm going to say send reports to Johan's boss at company.com so that he knows I'm doing all that work at night. Click on next. I'm going to say executive summary reports. I'm going to select my time zone. I could customize that template, as I mentioned, to have your logo, have that tagline by Johan, and say a single report, and I'm going to send that on a daily basis. Finish, and it's that easy to be able to schedule those reports to be sent out to my boss or yourself on a daily basis. So as we look at the future sessions of those, digging deeper into the Dimension series, Dimension 102 is going to look at diving into the data. We talked a little bit about how to do the user identification, find out who the top talkers are. But on the next series, 102, we're going to get our hands dirty. We're going to start investigating some interesting user traffic. We're going to track down what users are getting blocked from sites and services, and much more. So again, that next FireBytes session is on Friday, March 20th. You can register for that. I threw up a bit.ly link for you. Do make sure that your emails aren't getting the GoToMeeting or GoToWebinar emails aren't getting caught up in your junk folder. Go ahead and add those as a safe sender. You can also subscribe to our YouTube channel. So again, youtube.com/WatchGuard Northwest, or NW for the Northwest. And again, there's my email address. Feel free to send any questions you have to me, or send any future topics that you might have that you would like to see us cover under these types of series. So I'm going to go ahead and leave that up for a few minutes so you can grab that email address, grab that YouTube channel, go ahead and subscribe. But at this point, I do want to thank you for your time. These FireBytes sessions are meant to keep them short and simple. I know your days are busy, so hopefully this was of use to you, and hopefully you can get your WatchGuard Dimension installed, configured, and running to give you visibility into your traffic. So again, thank you very much, and we'll see you next month on March 20th.